So we are back. I'm sorry about that technical connections again. Yeah, so dear, we were talking about responsibility and children and how they are taking responsibility and learning responsibility. You gave your example of your own children, um,
Right.
your
Well,
oldest daughter.
if you start with children at a very young age and just give them one job, I know a lot of parents to get puppies and they or little cats and they say, okay, it's your job to feed them. And that's one responsibility they have. And when they understand that that thing, that dog, that cat depends on them, so that's their responsibility because
Yeah,
if they don't feed it, that little animal doesn't eat and they can die. And
yeah,
when they understand that, that's really a great thing. When I was 5 years old, before I went to kindergarten, first first step to school, we lived on a farm. We were still a whole family at that point in time, and we lived on a farm, and we had 2,000 rabbits. We had about 100 chickens and about the same amount of turkeys, and four extremely angry ducks. And it was my job to feed those things every morning. My dad worked two jobs, plus he helped take care of the farm. And I was expected to take care of the farm and do that work when I was 5. And I just thought that was my responsibility, is what I had to do to help the family. And so I did it. I did it without question. I didn't argue about it because it had to be done. If I didn't do it, those animals wouldn't eat. Period.
yeah.
So that was a way to teach responsibility. And then when I got to school, the teacher taught respect.
Okay.
If you don't do this, you're in deep trouble. And the responsibility there began with picking up your toys. Something simple. You have a responsibility to keep this area clean. So when
Yeah.
we say we're done, we pick up the toys. So whether you're talking about work, you're talking about home, or you're talking about maybe just working with your friends, it could be that simple. You decide to get together and someone says, all right, well, let's have a card game. You're responsible for the cards. Okay, you're responsible for the cards. Now, what happens if you don't bring the cards? Something simple like that. You forget the cards. Well, I think, unless I'm incorrect, but I think your stress level goes like from here to here. And then when you get there and your friends say, where's the cards? And then your stress level goes to here. Could have all been avoided if you just brought the cards.
Yeah,
So,
correct.
responsibility, if you accept responsibility, you're going to reduce a lot of stress in your life. A
Yeah,
lot.
yeah,
Now, the other thing that happens is people are going to start counting on you because you accept responsibility and they recognize that you're that person.
you have. That's a kind of mature responsibility. You're a mature person. If you take responsibility, you are seen as a mature person. I'm
Yeah.
curious to see how you define responsibility in your tiny tale as a character and how that is defined in storytelling and everything we have in the tiny tale land.
Well, in our storytelling, here's a sample story we wrote one time about a little girl and boy who were trying to help their single mom out. And the mom said, I'm counting on you guys to do the dishes right after we finish eating. And so the first night after she said that, they were playing. She come back into the room and they were playing. She set them down and she said, no, wait a minute. I left to go do something important and I counted on you to do something important and I need you to help me and accept responsibility for dishes.
Yeah,
So at first, reluctantly, they did that. Then they found out that they could actually play while they were doing the job. They could talk to each other and have fun and tell stories and jokes and so forth. And at the same time, they were actually doing something that was helpful for their mom. And so the moral of the lesson was that these two kids learned responsibility can be fun too.
Yeah, good. That's a good one.
Yeah.
I think that is contagious if you because responsibility can be contagious if it's funny, and it must be more contagious if it is a funny thing to do if you enjoy it, and if it's nothing that has to do with, because responsibility is such a you define it as something negative sometimes. To be responsible of something, it's like heavy burden, but it's not. It's something that is part of your human being, and I think that being responsible gives you you need some kind of mindset shift to understand that, because being a responsible person is being a good person, being taking responsibility for also for yourself, and how you for yourself, for inner dialogue, and also for your outer dialogue, and how you are communicating with others. So I think it's funny too. I really enjoy this having this traits in your tiny tale, and it sounds really really funny. So I just want to also go on and talk about this mindset shift, and we need to, like, if you take a look at synergies between the resilience and responsibility, because we have seen many statistics and everything that it really is something that engage people if you have those two in both private life and in organizations. So it's really crucial to combine them, right?
Yes.
What happens if we are not able to combine resilience and responsibility? Do you think are you available for taking in your responsibility and becoming resilient to take care of yourself? Because if you lack the resilience, how can you then be responsible? If you are responsible for yourself and your actions, it's some kind of combination there. But how do you think those two are, like, how do you need to embody those two to really if you lack one of them? And
Yeah, let's break it down for a minute. Let's talk about resilience. What happens if you don't have resilience?
Yeah.
If you don't have resilience, you're going to spend a lot of time being depressed. You're going to spend a lot of time wondering, well, why don't people like me? If you don't have resilience, you're going to constantly think people are against you. You're going to have all kinds of problems. There's so many social and then wellness being problems that are directly associated with resilience. So if you're not resilient and you can't bounce back from something, then you begin to internalize this. And when you begin to internalize this, that's what breaks things down within your body. And people don't realize that. Stress, there's so many studies about stress and how it affects the human being, and it's different for everybody. I know somebody knew somebody that worked for me early on. And when he first started working, this guy was stressed so badly. If you said, could you get this done? And right away, he'd start to twitch because he had a responsibility. It just, well, before long, he learned that it was a safe space. Okay, that was the first step. He learned he was in a safe space.
yeah.
When we said, okay, and I'll just call him Bernie for this expression, I'm going to say, Bernie, we need to get so-and-so done. Would you be available to get this done by Friday? And after a while, he said, sure, I can do that. And so he was bouncing back in his own ways. He was starting to become resilient because he felt like he was in a safe space. A lot of times people aren't resilient because there's not a safe space, and they just bounce. Think of bouncing from one wall to another because there's no safe space. So you run this way hoping that it's going to be safe. You run that way hoping, and no matter where you go, you're still feeling like it's not safe. You're feeling like people are still coming at you, and that's a horrible feeling. Well, the reason you feel that way is because you don't have the tools necessary to become resilient. So let's talk about those tools.
Yeah, please.
Responsibility is certainly one of them. You need one of those. You need a support system. If you're an individual who has no support, no family, no friends, no coworkers, no one who's going to say, you know what, George, it's okay. I understand that you made a mistake. Let's just help you move on. we'll get to the next level. And now we'll learn from that and we'll come back up on top. And that's how you slowly get back up on top. And it's because somebody helped you. So people without any support system are uh, more susceptible to falling into that trap of being non-resilient.
Yeah.
Okay. The other thing about resilience is if you're a person who accepts responsibility, if you're a person who is grateful, if you're a person who has joy in their life, and then somebody comes along and says, you didn't do that. You made a big mistake here. You don't understand that that cost other people this, 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 and this. And right away you're going, oh my God, I'm like the worst person on the planet. And so your resilience steps in right away. But then what happens when that does have something like that, you realize, wait a minute, I have worth. I have these people that count on me, love me, and appreciate me. I'm grateful for everything I have. I share joy with others. It's you, it's others.
Yeah.
I'll tell you a funny story. Not funny necessarily, but yeah, children, at least when I was raising my children, the famous word was, I'm bored. I don't have anything to do. I'm bored. I thought about this.
Why is that? There's
This
many
is-
that say it like that. Many
It's-
children
it's
are
a-
like that.
It's a trap. It's a trap.
Yeah.
The parent goes, oh my God, now I'm the entertainment center and everything I get. They're bored. So what can I do to make them not bored? So I was thinking about it one day and I came up with this idea. I said, well, you're not bored because you're focused on you. I said, what if you turned your focus on somebody else? I said to them, I would say, don't you know Mrs. Smith down the street? She just lives three houses down. Don't you know her? Yeah, I know her. Why don't you go down and ask Mrs. Smith if she has any fun things that she can do, that you can do for her, and see what she says. So that was the first experiment.
That's really deep, DR.
And about an hour later, this kid came back and she said, you cannot believe what she had me do. And she listed all these things and how much fun they were and everything. And I said, so why'd you leave? She said, she ran out of fun things. And she said, it's okay. You can go home now. And I said, great. Now that you've helped somebody, I bet you feel better about yourself. She says, well, I feel good. I said, so are you bored anymore? Nope. I said, great. Go have fun.
But what do we miss out there? Because many people recognize this. I mean, it's really something common in all family and life. If we put it on the corporate training level, what do we miss out here to really have this? I mean, people get bored all the time, but if you put it in the working environment and also based on taking responsibility and being resilient, what are corporations missing out here to really succeed?
Let's combine those two things, responsibility and boredom. So you work for a company and you've got a job to do. They hired you to do a specific job. And you're sitting there and you realize, well, all my work's caught up and I'm just, there's nothing to do. But there is plenty to do because you can look across the way at another worker and realize that they're busier in a one-arm paper hanger. They're trying to figure out how they can get more done because they've got so much to do. That's where responsibility kicks in. You realize that you're part of a team, you're part of a group, and that you've got to all succeed together. So it would be really easy for you just to walk over to that person and say, I've got a bit of free time. I'd be happy to help you with your responsibility. Now, there's an acceptance of responsibility. There's an opportunity to share responsibility and an opportunity for them to grow and avoid boredom.
And that is a cultural thing. I mean, to build a culture around this, and it's like building a resilience, responsibility culture in a corporation. It's really something that I mean, I recognize this from my own work also, and I think many of us other viewers also do that. That we have our own responsibilities as work, but then we forget our co-workers and as we're part of a team, and that's a cultural thing. It's an egoistic thing. I think it's something that we are built in us, and we have to. How do we train that to become more responsible, taking more responsibility in that term, in that seeing other people's needs and our other people's being more empathic about that? How do we do that? I mean, because many people don't see that or don't have time to see it or don't really care
Well,
about it.
from my perspective, it falls on the CEO, squarely on the CEO. Are you the type of person that says, no, people come to me? I'm the CEO. You got a problem, come to me. I'll resolve it, move on. However, if you're the type of CEO that reaches out and you can see somebody struggling and you pull them aside and say, wow, you seem to have a real hard time here. What are you doing and what's your pinch point? Where is it not coming together for you? Let me see if I can help you figure that out.
Oh.
Now, what's he done there? First of all, he said, okay, I'm willing to help. As soon as somebody's willing to help you, you feel like now there's two of you that's going to resolve the problem. And if you feel alone, then you get another problem. And that's when people get bored. They get bored because they're alone. They're not being held accountable. There's all kinds of repercussions of that. But a lot of this training and corporate culture that you're talking about, it doesn't start in the HR department. It starts at the very top of the company. What kind of company do you want? I've built so many companies, and I just had an experience yesterday where somebody came to me and they said, well, I'm deeply into my company and I've done this and I've done that. And I said to them, well, when you started the company, did you know what you wanted? Well, I had this big vision that we could do this and do this. I said, no, that's not what I asked you. Did you know what you wanted? Did you design the company? Did you feel like you wanted employees that were great? You wanted to be able to help them. You wanted to be able to help others. Did you understand that it was going to take time on your part in order to be part of their lives as opposed to them taking time to service you? Did you think about that? No. I said, well, no time like the present. I said, your assignment from this consulting session I was doing, I said, your assignment is to go back and think about your company and think about what it is that you're trying to achieve. Is it for you or for them or for others? What are you trying to do? And when I said that question, she said, well, I'm trying to help others. I'm trying to help others realize that they can experience this.
Yeah.
And I said, fantastic. Now, why don't you do the same thing with the people who work for you? Oh, that hit a nerve. Oh, didn't think about that. No, they're here to support me. No, not really. If you support them, they will support you because they trust you.
Yeah.
And that's how you begin to build corporate culture. So
That's an amazing insight.
that does not come from the HR department. That comes right from the top. And when you have a culture like that, what is the net result of that? I can tell you it comes right down to the bottom right-hand corner of the balance sheet. It's profit.
Yeah.
Because everybody's happier, everybody works together as a team, everybody has a shared responsibility for the success of the company, and you are not seen as an oligarch, you're seen as someone who actually loves the company, loves the people that works for him, and considers themselves part of the group as opposed to I'm the CEO.
Yeah, and that's easier said than done because many organizations are already established and have established a certain culture. So what is the one thing you would like give them for tip to change this cultural habits to
Well,
strengthen traits of
I
responsibility and resilience?
listen, I bought companies and I bought them at a discount because they were horrible. I bought a steel company one time. I bought it for 50 cents on the dollar. I bought it for 50 cents on the dollar because the people didn't know how to treat their people. They didn't know how to market. They didn't know how to account for things, and they weren't accepting any responsibility for anything. So
Mm.
when I did my analysis of the company, I said, wow, this guy who thinks he's a CEO doesn't know anything about this. So when I bought the company, I bought 75% of the company. And I said, so you're still here, you're the founder, but you're not going to be leading this company. I said, if you think you are, then I'm not investing. So he agreed, let me do it. So first thing I did was I sat down with every person and I said, one, tell me about you. Two, tell me what you think you're doing here. And three, tell me why you want to be here. Now, once I understood that, then I knew a lot more about them. Then what I did is I held a once a month meeting. This company only had 26 employees. So I held a once a month meeting with everyone in the company that only lasted 10, 15 minutes. I asked them how they're doing, what's their main issue, what's the thing you're having the most trouble with. And then I would ask them a question about their personal life.
Mm.
Is everything okay at home? Do you have any problems? Is anything you're doing at work affecting what you do at home? And so sometimes the meeting would go longer because something was backing up. Well, when that happens, then the person's not going to give you their best at work. So I need to help solve that problem so that I can get more production and that person can feel more like they're a part of what's going on.
Yeah.
Net result, in 14 months, I sold the company for 4 times what I paid for it.
Wow. And I mean, people forget there are people in the company. They are the most important assets. And if what you're telling me now is if the top management goes down on middle management and also going down the hierarchy, making more flat, being more present, then people are seen, and then the motivation will. They will take more responsibility and feel that they want to take more responsibility.
Sure.
That's what you're saying.
Yes, absolutely right. They'll be more helpful. And a threatened environment. Oh, I can't tell you the number of companies I've been to where people operate out of fear. I'm going to lose my job any minute. I could be fired next week. And
I think that is also a common thing.
and
Depending
that
on different kind of sectors, of course, but
and that raises stress. How? Unbelievable. And then you're expecting this same person to be productive. You're expecting a cultural environment where people respect one another and they take responsibility for what they do. No, in fact, if something happened, they're going to blame the first person who walks by them. It's probably her fault because she didn't whatever, as opposed to saying it's my fault. But I forgot to tell everybody.
yeah, but that's deep because it's really something that we need to remind ourselves of because depending on what kind of work you have and what kind of personal situation you have, this is so important to really. Many people don't have the possibility, perhaps, or are not available to do this mindset shift is needed because they don't get the tool to do that. So how is that? How do you see that in? How can you, with your Tiny Tailland and also your executive programs, how can we help to build that kind of culture? What is the mindset shift that is needed, and how is that incorporated in those training sessions, or a tiny tail concept that you have? Do you have something that you can share with us regarding that? So
Well, with regard to tiny tales, remember that's all for children 4 to 10.
yeah,
That's where we're focused,
yeah,
because we know that if we can reach kids at that age, get them to understand all these different aspects of character, that their integrity as individuals, as they begin to move up the age ladder, will increase. Also, their credibility when they understand responsibility, for example, and they become the go-to person, their credibility goes up as well. So you start building that at a very early age. Now, the problem is with adults is many people, I don't want to use the term broken, because I really don't believe anybody's broken. I think they're just missing something. Okay. So a lot of people are just missing something. And it could be respect, it could be responsibility, it could be gratitude for what they have. You know, if they're not grateful for the little cubicle they have, maybe they should work in a closet. You know, I don't know.
yeah,
What's it take to be grateful? And so a lot of it is the way you treat people. And so our CIC initiative, which is character, integrity, and credibility, is all built around trying to show people through reflective questions how they can be better at any one of these things. So you look at those questions, you read those questions, then you ask yourself, is that me? Am I really doing that, or do I understand that? And that's how you begin to grow. So we started, for example, on LinkedIn, we started a new series just today on CIC. And we started with the first area was appreciation. How many times does somebody do something and you say, thanks? Thanks doesn't particularly express appreciation, does it? It's an acknowledgement, you know? You may as well say, close the door on your way out. It's just an acknowledgement that they exist. But if you say, I want to tell you, Stina, what you've done today helped me in ways that you probably can't imagine at this point, but I can tell you I can, and that is going to make my job easier, which means that I'm going to be able to help more people. And as a result, I really appreciate what you've done. Now, when you walk out, how do you feel? Better or worse?
yeah, that's and taking the time to really reflect on that, and how you talk to your people, and people talk to you. That's makes such a huge difference, of course. I'm curious, because when we talk about these traits, also for the younger generations, we are as we are doing this series, Traits of Life, I think we are aiming to create some kind of legacy, right? And I was like thinking about that, because what kind of future are we building if we teach young people this in a young age? What do you think the future of leadership will look like, and also future of organizations?
Oh my gosh, it is absolutely critical. We've already seen what happens when you don't teach this. And I'm sorry if those people listening happen to fall in this age group, but here's a general statement. Doesn't apply to everybody, but it's kind of a general statement. If you're between the ages of 20 and 36, that group, certain people within that group, have a problem with respect, authority, appreciation. They don't understand gratitude. They don't understand kindness. They don't understand how any of that impacts another person, for example.
Mm.
And I'm beginning to think that they don't even understand love. Look at that age group, and do they connect with somebody because of love or something else? And that's a problem. So when we looked at it, when we started Tiny Tales, we said, this whole issue of character is huge, and nobody seems to be doing anything about it. And the more research we did, we found out that schools around the world at every level, whether you're talking about the preliminary grades or middle school or high school or university level, are not teaching character, period. If it's not reading, writing, or arithmetic, or maybe art, and none of those things address character.
Huh.
So we said, we need to do something about that, and it needs to start at an early age. So that's why we've created our 100 word lessons that teach an actual lesson in 100 words. So you as a mother, a young mother, when you read a bedtime story to your child and you read 100 words, takes you 43 seconds, and it's about honesty. And at the end of it, you ask your daughter, um, are you honest? Do you understand this story? Was that person honest with someone else, and why were they honest? What was in it for them? Why did they do that? Well, the answer was at the end of the story when one person said to the other, "I'm so glad I didn't just keep the dollar that I found in the play yard. I came back and realized it was yours." And the tagline is, and he felt better about giving it back than he did about keeping it.
Yeah.
Lesson taught, 100 words, simple. And now you have a chance to create a moment and create a memory with your child based on that story. And that's what we're trying to accomplish with the youth. And that's why we've written so many stories. We have on our website more than 500 stories. We're just getting ready to create an app so that parents can access those stories anytime, on the road, on a train, on a plane, or wherever
And
you
they
have.
are amazing. I've looked into them as well, and I think they are so important because it's also this time limit that people say, "I don't have time to really focus on this," and this is a really easygoing approach that it's something that is, you talk about love. This is so lovable. It's really so
Thank you.
deep. It's really so deep that it's really touched my heart because to learn that and to have that discussion with your child is something that you will remember for the rest of your life, and also you will give something really amazing to your child because they will understand it in a deeper level that then they will never teach that. You don't teach that in school, and to get that reflection, I think it's so amazing and important. So of course it's the future of leaders, and also people will be so much better if we teach these traits to them at an early age.
Better citizens, better partners,
Yeah.
better business people, business owners, better politicians. What would life be like? Better,
Yeah.
I think. And so we're entering that void period, and I liken it to the fact that in my generation, we had here in America, we had a lot of people going to Vietnam. I was one of them. Half of the members of my football team in high school died within 6 months of graduating high school because of Vietnam.
Okay.
Now, that left a huge void in the number of people available to lead and to start companies and to do all these other kinds of things. There was a shortage of people in that age group. Well, what's happening now, because these people in this age group that I discussed are not doing the kinds of things that we're talking about, are not really character oriented, not integrity oriented. I don't care two craps about integrity and credibility. Who cares? I'm me. Okay, fine, you be you. But you be you is somebody I don't believe in, and you be you is not somebody I'm going to follow.
Oh.
That's a problem. How do we get leaders out of that attitude? We can't.
No.
So we see Tiny Tales as an important step in creating better citizens, better partners, better business people and CEOs and leaders, and better politicians. people willing to talk to other people. They don't see somebody as being different. They see them as somebody who is different and but yet the same as them. And
Yeah.
now we've got a common place. We've got some place to go where we can actually talk about a solution. But when you don't have character, when you don't have integrity, when you don't have credibility, it's very difficult to accomplish those things. So that's what Tiny Tales is designed to create.
Yeah, and I would like to add something because last episode you also spoke about this. You had for us older people, not the young generation, but older. You also have something else going on there to really, because we need to learn these traits no matter how old we are, because we have
Right.
different kind of the next generation is of course important, but we are here now. And you had something there said that you are developing also for
Yeah.
a little bit
If,
older, and not those tiny tail land, but then for the younger people or the older people. What was that? Can you repeat that again?
yes, I can. It's called the CIC Initiative, Character, Integrity, and Credibility. And you can find it at yourcharactercounts.net. There's a pledge that you can take, which simply says that you're going to represent yourself in a certain way and you're going to assume a certain responsibility and so forth. And it's a very short pledge. Take the pledge, then give us your email address and your name, and we'll send you a kit that will help support you in that effort. And then we have another page there that has lots of questions about character, lots of questions about integrity and also your credibility. And so it gives you a chance to be reflective, to ask yourselves, am I doing that? Do I really understand that? Because when we teach the kids, we actually take the time to give them instruction in that particular character trait, and we give them things to do to reinforce that. And then they get a chance to come back to the teacher or parent, and the parent or teacher can say, all right, can you tell me about resilience? What does that really mean? And because of the exercises we've given them, they can repeat it. They can say, it means this. And once they've done that, they get to sign off. They get a sticker. Well, we're not giving stickers to anybody in the adult.
Maybe we want to.
But you want a sticker? I'm sorry.
Yeah. No.
Anyway, what we are is giving you a chance to become a better person, if that's what you want to be. If you don't really care, then this site's not for you. You don't want to do that. We intend to ultimately make that an app because we think it's something that people, when they have a few moments, can sit and reflect. Somebody gave me the best advice. One of the best pieces of advice I ever received back when I was in my 20s.
Oh.
He said, you know what the measure of a man is? And I said, what? He said, it's what you think about when you don't have to think. I said, wow, that's awful. I said, now I'm really embarrassed by the things that I've been thinking. I need to be more intentional about what I think about.
Yeah, of course.
And when you're more intentional about what you think about, better things come out of your mouth and better things happen. So it was
it's that easy, but yeah.
Great advice.
Yeah. And I think also just want to add something, because I just popped an idea, because when we talk about corporations and this training or this reflection training that they have in this what you talk about now, and this is something that you can put on and take with you to organizations, have like workshops with your employees, and it's something bigger that you can use. Or what is the plan? Do you have some plans there? I just got that in my mind now. Do you see that going on, that you can do that as well, to do it team wise?
Let me tell you about me. Not about you, about
Yeah.
I don't know how old I look like to you, but I'm 78. And at this point, I'm not going out and sitting in front of a group of people and trying
I understand that. You have done yours, 30 companies.
One of the reasons that that I agreed to do this podcast is because it gave me an opportunity to talk about these things that are so pressing in my mind because I want people to know them. And I've learned them over years and years and years of experience. And to have me just fade away into the woodwork and nobody know this is tragic, I think. And there's a lot of other people just like me. So what I decided to do was get myself on as many podcasts as I could so I could talk about these and other subjects that would help others. You know, my personal tagline is, how can I be helpful?
Yeah, you had that already the first time we met. I know
Yeah.
that. How can we help?
Yeah. How can I be
I
helpful?
remember that.
Yeah. So my point is that my focus for ever since I was in my mid-20s when I developed that line is to focus on others. And if I help others solve a problem, become better, if I change just one life, the ripple effect of that in society is incredible. I mean, literally, you can create a tsunami if you get the right idea out with the right person and they start pushing it out. Then you don't have one person, you have 20 people, and you have 100, and you have 10,000 people all pushing that idea. You got a tsunami at the end of this where life changes dramatically. And to me, that's huge, and that's what I want to try and do, and that's what I hope I'm doing in some respect with by being on your podcast.
Absolutely.
You know, if we change the life of just one person out there, and they understand that they can be resilient, they understand that this can be learned. You don't have to just say, "Well, I'm not resilient. I'm not good. I don't get back up. I don't know how to get back up." You know, when I was a kid, of course, there were a lot of cowboys around when I was a kid still. And the old expression was, you got to get back on the horse. You fall down, you got to get back on the horse. You got to get back up. And that's simple, truthful, and it still is true today. And we're talking about now more than 125 years since we were dealing with cowboys and all that kind of stuff. And I can tell you, it's true. You've got to get back up. You have to rise. And when you rise, when you practice that, then you find that you can bounce back from anything. The worst disaster that you can possibly imagine, you can bounce back. I'll tell you a personal story.
Amazing, and they are what a speech. I know. Yeah, I agree with you totally. Amazing that you talk to people like this because it's a good reminder. So yeah, please tell you a personal story there, and we can end this podcast afterwards. I want to speak with you forever here, but we need to wrap it up afterwards.
Personal true story. I was living in a circumstance where I had a full-time gardener, a full-time maid, and had a full-time cook. Had 6 kids and a wife. We lived in a very comfortable home, lots of cars, lots of things. And overnight, my fortune went from having a very substantial income to nothing. Zero. Within 2 weeks, I was living in a home that wasn't comfortable. It was 1,300 square feet with 6 children. Now, it wasn't homeless, and I was homeless as a kid. So
yeah, you've been there already. Yeah.
Pretty lucky. But the point is, I could have just said, well, I'm an abject failure and moved on from there. But instead, I said, well, obviously, I put too much stock in that. I put all my eggs in this one basket, and then that basket fell apart. And so consequently, my financial life fell apart. So when I decided to bounce back, I designed a different life. I designed it so that this would happen and this would happen and that would happen. And if this went bad, this would take over and that would take over. And so I learned a big lesson from that. But that was bouncing back. And it took me about a year and a half to recover. I didn't get quite up to where I was before, but I wasn't interested in that. I just wanted to get back to a level where if my wife wanted to go down and buy groceries at any time of the day or night, she could do it and expect there to be money to do it. If I wanted to create a bill, I could pay cash for it. I didn't have to put it on a credit card, things like that.
Yeah.
So I wasn't trying to become a multimillionaire. That did occur, but I wasn't trying to do that. I was just trying to pay the bills, make sure my kids had what they wanted. They could get shoes when they needed shoes, clothes when they needed clothes. So my point is resilience can happen anywhere to anyone. You can be very wealthy and need to be resilient. You can be just an average Joe or poor and be resilient. I know a lot of people that have gone from poor to homeless in a heartbeat. So many people are a paycheck away from being homeless.
Yeah.
So you need to be resilient. You need to understand what that means and how you can bounce back. And you need to be thinking about what happens if I do lose this. How do I bounce back? And you need to have a plan. So,
and that's also, we are wrapping up. But just this is another episode because we're talking a lot about this. Is also about setting goals for yourself.
right.
What is the best goal to set for resilience and responsibility, do you think?
Is to have a backup plan.
Yeah.
You got to have some place to go. If you're going to be resilient, where are you going to go? You're just going to stand back up? Okay, well, I suppose it depends on the circumstance. If resilience is, you're out there playing football and somebody knocks you down, you're going to get back up, right?
Yeah.
If you're on the job and they decide to make department cuts and you're fired, what's your backup plan? What's your next thing you're going to do? Are you just going to go home and go, well, I didn't make it, they fired me? Or are you going to go home and say, maybe I need to rethink what I'm doing and how I'm doing it. Maybe it's not so much about budget cuts as it is about me. Do I need to learn more? Do I need to do more? Do I need to change the way I think? Do I need a paradigm shift? What is it that I need? And so you need a plan B. How many people ever think about a plan B? They're just focused on plan A because it seems to be going really well. Well, what happens if it doesn't? What's your plan B?
Yeah.
So I guess if we're going to end the episode, then let me just suggest you need to think about resilience and your responsibility to others as you could be impacted by resilience. If you're a husband or a wife, if you're a breadwinner, you're the sole responsibility for your children, and something happens, what's your plan B? It's one thing to get back up, but get back up and do what? So what's your plan B? So on that note, I think I'm done.
Yeah, that was a really nice ending word, Dior. And that's a good plan. Plan B. We need to take that with us because, we are living in uncertain times.
Yeah.
And having these traits is the blueprint for the future, I think. So thank you again for being here on the show, Dior. And we see each other next time and perhaps next week already. So we plan another episode in the Traits of Life. And for you guys who are watching, thank you so much again for watching and following us on YouTube. And also, if you're live on TikTok now, just go on to our YouTube site and subscribe so you never miss another episode. And thank you again, dear, and have a great day. And until next time.